get us started here.
Also, just a reminder, we do record these events, so I did start that recording.
Okay, so welcome everyone to our July meeting. Still virtual, as you know. We're hoping that our next meeting is going to be in person. We, hot off the presses, we have a location potentially secured, so more information to come on that, but I appreciate everyone taking the time. I know we all spend a lot of time on Zoom and Teams, and we appreciate you taking the time to spend with us in that same format that we're probably all a little tired with. So for those who don't know me, I'm Colleen Rush. I am the Director of Application Support at Bayada, and for HDI Philly, I am the President of this chapter. So we're going to do a couple of our normal intro information, but then we're going to change things up a little bit for the sake of our speakers' time, and some of the things that we normally would do in the beginning, we're going to move to the end. So hopefully that still works for everyone. So just a quick agenda, introductions, and then Phil Gerbishak is with us today. He has saved the day. We had one of our speakers cancel, and he was very gracious to offer some time with us today. So after we talk to Phil, then we're going to have Lisa Welsher. Then we'll go into a little bit of an icebreaker session where we're going to break everyone into groups, have a little bit of networking time. I'll go through some chapter business, and then as normal, we will have a raffle at the end. You do need to be present to win, and just a reminder, it is practitioners only. So hopefully you'll be able to stay with us to the end. So again, just to go through this kind of quickly so that we can stay on track with our time, we have our board. Some of us are still kind of joining the call today, but John Kitchen, sorry, I have to move the screen over. John Kitchen is our VP of Events. Dave Sharp, VP of Finance. Mike Stanziola, who will be joining us in a little while, is the VP of Membership. Ross Rosner is our VP of Communications, and Jason Turner is our VP of Programs. So he is the one tasked with finding the speakers that we have every month, and he does a phenomenal job with that piece. And then also, as part of our board, we have our Leadership Council. Not everyone is able to join us today, but these are who are typically with us and who help us with planning our meetings. We have Ariel from Mainline Health, Chris Saccone, he's not able to be here today, Jason Trace from Freedom Mortgage, Paul from Temple, he's in the middle of a ticket system migration, so he cannot join us today. And we have Tim Searle and Lou Eggert are with us as well. So if you bear with me 1 minute, I'm going to admit Dave Sharp, and he is going to help us introduce Phil.
Hey guys, it's Jason. I'm sorry that I was having really big problems getting in. Did other people have problems getting into the Zoom? Or is it just me?
We were a little last minute on the Zoom link, but otherwise I think we have a fair amount on, 20 people on so far.
It is so weird. I could not get in. I actually fired up my personal computer rather than my work computer, because I tried 2 different browsers. I tried getting in, I go to the Zoom site and entering in the ID and password, nothing was working, but I'm in, and actually I see that Dave joined as well. Dave, are you able to introduce Phil now, or do you want me to do that?
I'm not seeing audio for Dave yet.
Okay, there we go. Here we go. And can we make Phil a presenter?
Yep.
There we go. Hey, Phil, how are you?
Fantastic. How are you?
So you're bailing me and us out. I can't believe that we had 2 people cancel on us. One last week, and we had a plan B, but I will tell you, I didn't have a plan C coming into today. And and Rick, I don't know if anybody knows Rick. He's been very active in HDI. In fact, he just was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award for his contributions to our industry. Sent me a note at 4:30 this morning that he's got COVID and he's not going to be able to present. So Phil, I really appreciate you stepping in. Some of you folks are going to remember Phil. He spoke at I guess it was our last annual leadership conference and vendor fair. where not only did Phil present, but he was our MC. He was our host for this evening, for the day. So so Phil is I think a thought leader and a sales professional who's got some great information to share with us. On connecting, which, with us starting to return to office and starting to see people in person after the pandemic, I think is something that, would benefit all of us. So with that, I will turn it over to Phil. Phil, you should be able to share your screen at this point.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I'm super excited to be here. Thanks everyone for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Fun. Yeah. Hey, Dave. So it's fun to be with you today. So I'm going to talk to you about how to connect with virtually anybody, even people you haven't met in person. Some of this stuff you can do in person, some of this stuff you can do over Zoom. I'm going to pretend like it's over Zoom, and then I'm going to ask you for feedback because we're over Zoom today, right? So we're going to get you to hopefully share some thoughts as well. Use the chat. So I want to make sure that stuff works. So in your Zoom now, I'm going to stop share for just a sec. I want you to pick your favorite reaction, whatever that is. And if you click on that reactions button, you know that you can click on the 3 dots there and you can change it so you get even more reactions. So share your favorite reaction. I see some love there. I see some laughter, some smiling. We got a fire. We got a party here. Thumbs up, right? Cool. We got hand clapping. Very fantastic. What else? Who else has got one that I have? Anybody got one I haven't seen? Good. We got a prayer. Thank you for that, right? Yeah, pray that this goes good for sure, right? So cool. And then, oh, that's interesting. Christy, you got to unmute. What is that one? I've never seen that one before. And then we have a space alien, which I especially love. So what's that one, Christy? Can you tell me what that is? It looks like a sound thing, but I don't know that. If you can come off mute, or just type it in chat and I'll read it out if you can't come off mute. So I see a lady in a red dress, Sandy. I love that. I'm guessing you wear a lot of red dresses. It's probably cool. And now we got another one here. Is that a red flag or a red egg? Okay, cool. So gang, so this is one way you can start getting people to talk to each other just through emojis, right? World Emoji Day was last week. It gives you an opportunity to show a little bit of your personality, a little bit of stuff. Maybe you ask questions about it, right? Like I did there. Certainly one way to get to know each other. Yeah, Dancing Queen for Sandy. Fantastic, right? Sometimes it's a ghost, whatever it is, right? Get curious. Get curious about your team. Certainly one way to do it. Super easy way to get to know people, because sometimes, right, if we were in person and Sandy was dancing, right, I might ask, so what kind of dancing do you like to do? Is it salsa, merengue, whatever, right? Over Zoom, I just see that she's a dancing queen, and I can then maybe make a note of that, and I can take that offline, and that'd be someone that I can follow up with later, okay? So lots of ways to do that. I'm going to talk about how to connect to virtually anybody today with that. And this is the big question, right? This is what we're going to be solving for today, is how do we connect with virtually anyone, especially people we've never met before. Currently, I work at Bamboo HR as a sales enablement consultant, and I've never met anybody on my team. Not in person anyway, but I feel super connected with them. So some of the stuff I'm going to share is from that. Some of the stuff I've been working from home since 2010. And work from home, work from coffee shop, work from co-working space, work from not in an office. So I'm going to share some of that stuff. And we remember the way it was, right? This was fun. High fives and handshakes and sometimes hugs, right? HDI is big on hugs, right? So, but now it's like this. We're multitasking. We're doing multiple things, right? I appreciate that anybody that is on their phone, right, is probably off camera, but we know, right, people multitask. They do multitask stuff, even if we don't want them to, but that's because we've got more inputs coming at us more than ever before, and they're taking notes, right? I've got my notebook next to me here. You probably have a notebook next to you, or you take them virtually, however that is, right? Maybe you take them on your phone. Maybe it's on your laptop. Maybe you've got a couple screens, or Jason say, yeah, my work computer didn't work for Zoom, so I used my personal computer. So interesting, right? We didn't even think about that a couple years ago, but those are ways to connect, right? We find out, how are we connected, right? How are we here today? Some of us sitting in front of our work computer, some in front of our personal computer, maybe some even in front of our phones. Works just as well, right? So that's kind of the way it is now. Now, if we want to get connected, I want to tell you, gang, it starts with onboarding. The first impression really matters. If you're hiring people, onboarding really, really is the first touch people have that we get to control as leaders or even as teammates. So take charge of your onboarding process and understand that this is the opportunity. This is the first time people are going to touch you virtually or in person. They're going to touch your heart. They're going to touch your brain, right? This is the first time they're going to touch you is in onboarding. So if we think about onboarding, right, first things, 4 questions, 4 things that we can do here. We have to start with understanding, who are they? Who are they? And ask 10 of the same questions for every hire, right? Don't discriminate. Don't try to make them different for this person or that person. And by a hire, they could be an internal transfer, or they could be, you know, you could use hire as maybe they're a new customer that you need to talk to, that you need to onboard as a customer. I'm using hire in the generic sense here, 10 of the same questions. And they don't have to be work questions, gang. I can't stress this enough. Questions like, so what's your favorite candy? What's your hometown? What did you want to be when you grow up? But 10 of the same questions. And then share them out with your team and encourage them to reach out. Now that we're working from somewhere else, from home, now we may not live in the same geographic area. Again, I work for Bamboo HR. We're headquartered in Utah. My team has people in Arizona. I've got 2 people in Idaho. I'm in Florida, 2 people in Utah. We could have people in North Carolina. We could have people in Texas. They could be anywhere. So one of the questions that, you know, again, where's your hometown? It doesn't necessarily mean where did you grow up, gang? It means where do you feel is home, your hometown? Or it could be where did you grow up? But encourage your team to reach out, right? And where are you currently? Again, being here in Florida, I'm just outside of Magic Kingdom and Disney World, but I'm in a city called Winter Garden. Now, I'll tell you, I don't meet a lot of people even locally that are in Winter Garden. When I got 10 questions, the 10 answers from someone new that started in the whole organization, I saw that somebody else was living in Winter Garden. Made an immediate connection, asked the question. So where in Winter Garden do you live? Do you have a favorite coffee shop? Do you got a favorite restaurant? And now we're connected even more. So it's important that those get shared out. Don't hoard the answers. Share them out and encourage your team to reach out with them. And then with this person individually, as you onboard them, share your answers to those questions next. Because here's the thing, we spend a lot of time making sure that our team connects. We forget to connect our team with us, that we're part of the team, that we're part of the solution here, that we're part of the connection. So who's got a really great question that they might think that, oh, I want to ask this, or I want to add this to the 10 questions? You can come off mute, yell it out, or you can pop it in chat if you'd like. Who's got a great question that we could use to connect that I didn't already share?
What's your favorite sports team?
There you go. What's your favorite sports team? There you go. So what is your favorite sports team?
That's not a good question for me because I live outside of Philly and I'm a Giants fan.
There we go. So that's a way to make sure that nobody here likes you. Is that how that is, right? That's a disconnection question. That's okay, right? So you're a Giants fan. That's cool though, right? Not everybody's an Eagles fan. Not everybody's a Giants fan. Not everybody's a sports fan. But the people that connects to, if they're passionate about it. So are you a passionate Giants fan, sir? Do you love the Giants? Do you bleed blue?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and in some years it's more painful than others, but yeah.
Yeah, right? So cool. And you know, the Giants are coming back with their retro uniforms from back when they were good in the 80s, right? And then early 90s. That's pretty cool. Are you excited about that?
I've got my Bavaro uniform in the closet.
There we go, right? So quick opportunity there to connect. And the rest of you are listening and you don't care about sports or you don't care about the Giants or whatever it is, right? Who cares? The goal is not to connect to everybody at once. The goal is to connect once with everybody. Give something, right, that can connect. Sports connects with some, not with others. That's okay, right? That's okay. Understand that if you ask 10 questions, that's why you don't just ask 2 or 3 questions. You ask 10 questions, you're going to get a variety of stuff. So lots of good stuff that you could ask. We got a chat question, right? Do you have a hobby? Or what's your hobby, right? And why do you love it so much? And do you have a picture of that hobby, right? Something like that. Absolutely, right? Great stuff. And then share your answers. Share your answers with that. You have to put your oxygen mask on first. You have to figure out first who you are. So those 10 questions, before you give them to anybody in onboarding, before you give them to a new customer, before you go, right, you have to share them first with yourself. Because any new hire, right, they're probably nervous and they are going to spin that back on you. So you should be ready to share yours and you should put on your oxygen mask first and understand a little bit more of that why. So here's some things that you could start with. Here's 4. If you want to take a snapshot of this picture, of this slide, you can, right? So who are you, right? So it could be something from childhood, right? It could be some context about you that connects with them. Could be something that connects you to the culture, and it can be something current and relevant. Okay, the thing here is just come up with something. And it'll help you a whole bunch get connected to virtually anybody. So if we think about childhood, right? Could be what we want to be when we grow up. Could be who is our favorite teacher. Could be the first book we remember reading. Could be the thing that we loved most in school, or maybe it's a memory, our first memory, our favorite cereal, anything like that, right? Context. About you, if we move into question 2 here, opportunity 2, right? Context about you. Well, I used to be an IT manager as well. Now I'm in sales enablement. I was a VP of IT for a long time. That's how I got connected with you and HDI here many, many years ago. I was an IT manager, so that's possible context, right? To help you with that. Connects to the culture. I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit. In current and relevant, I talk about my current job. I talk about, the Giants. I could talk about that. I talk about Winter Garden. I'm 20 minutes from Disney. I can talk about that, right? Different things just to connect. And not everything's going to connect with everybody. That's okay. Remember, your goal is to connect something to everybody, not everything to everybody. Okay. So something that's really helpful as you're connecting with people, especially at work, is to understand, how does your culture live inside you? These are the culture items that we live at Bamboo HR. And if you rearrange these, they actually spell the word gambled, which is kind of fun, right? It's kind of interesting. But these are our 7 values, and I could go through each of these, and that's nice, and you'd fall asleep. But instead, think about your culture. You've probably got a bunch of different pieces of your culture. Instead of coming up with something about each of these, instead, I want you to share your story about one piece of that culture. One piece of that culture. So for me, in our culture, the biggest thing that resonates with me is growing from good to great. I think I'm pretty good at what I do. If I wasn't, I probably wouldn't have a job. I'm sure each of you are pretty darn good at what you do, or you wouldn't have a job. But I want to be even better. I'm committed to growth. I want to grow from where I am, from good to great. And how I live this value is I read a lot of books. I have a podcast where I listen and ask questions of authors and thought leaders and practitioners and ask them to share their stories. And I get really curious. I read their books and I learn about that. And I get mentored by people. That's how I grow from good to great. And I'm always asking questions. I ask my boss. In fact, I just got off my one-on-one with my leader. How can I be better? How can I help out? How can I make a bigger impact? So my value that resonates most in me is this one. So think about your culture and your organization. Which piece of it resonates the most with you? Do you have a story that goes with that? Why that does? Maybe it's in another organization that they didn't live up to their values. And now the fact that you work there where you are right now the value is lived out. Maybe it's because you had an early teacher that shared with you how important it was for one of these, and that continued on. And when you finally found an organization that finally lived that value, you just grabbed hold of it and you had to take that opportunity. I encourage you, develop your story around the value, connect that to you, and then connect that to your team. Okay? And then get started with it. Get started with this. What I shared about culture and context and connection, that's great. But let's put this into practice. Let's put this into practice so you can actually do this with the work that you do. Again, you could do this with customers. You could do this with your team. You could do this with anybody that you want to get connected to. First thing to understand is no surprises. And by that, I don't mean that the information that you share isn't surprising. What I mean by no surprises is if you've never done this before, you need to let your team know what you're doing. If you've only held meetings that are reprimand meetings, that are scary meetings, that are layoff meetings, that are reorganization meetings, that are meetings that aren't good news, don't just pop this on people's calendars and expect they're going to be excited. People hate surprises. They hate surprises. So take the time, set it up, let them know this is what we're doing. And here's how we're going to do it, gang. We're going to start with 5 minutes at the start of every meeting that we have, and we're going to connect. We're going to share something, and I'm going to go first. Whether you're a leader, whether you're an individual contributor, whether you're a vendor, you need to go first. Take the time to connect first. Just 5 minutes of each meeting. Now, the first time, I'm just going to warn you, gang, the first time you are going to get one of two things. If you've never done this before, one thing that could happen is they could be scared to share. So everybody's quiet. And nobody shares except for you. So it ends up being just a 2-minute practice. The second thing that could happen is your team could be starved for this so much that they all want to share. So it takes the whole meeting time. The first time, maybe the first couple times, be okay with that. Be okay that your team has been starved for so long. Finally, now they get to eat. They get to share. They get to pour into each other. They finally get to connect with each other. For some, this is a big deal. Studies show, gang, that the reason people leave their work is because they don't feel connected at work. Now, sometimes that shows up in the fact they leave because they're manager, but a lot of times it's because they don't feel like anybody cares about them. They feel they're just output. They're just output. So I want to encourage you. Start with 5, know that it could go 2, it could go the whole time. And be okay with that. Let everybody share. Okay, take 5 to connect, and you have to go first. I can't stress this enough, gang. This is super important. I've said this a couple of times. I'm going to probably say it a couple more. You have to go first. You have to show that it's safe. You have to make sure that your team knows, right? And then you have to make it safe for them to go second, which means don't brag. Just share. Share something that could connect. Something that has context with them. Something that could be valuable to them. Something that they didn't know. Not just something they can go to your LinkedIn profile and see. Okay? And then disclose just a little more. Why does it matter to you what you just shared? How does it touch your heart, your mind? How has it changed your life? If it doesn't matter, well, then why the heck are you sharing it? If you're just checking the box, well, Phil says share, and this is a great way to connect to people. That's not how this works. This is not a check the box activity, gang. This is a check yourself activity. Does it really matter? If it does, then disclose just a little bit more. Now, some of the ways to start could be some favorites, right? As you start out, again, people don't want to share a lot. They could be the favorite cereal that they had as a kid or their favorite cereal now. Could be their favorite pet or their favorite child. Yeah, don't make the favorite child one, right? Favorite subject in school, right? We don't want to make people cry, but it's great to share, right? What's your favorite? Most people are happy to share a favorite story. With that, as we get a little bit more personal, what's your dream? What's your dream, or what was your dream? How far did you go with that? As a young child, I wanted to be a baseball player. When I was 16, I got in a car accident. I broke my shoulder in 12 places. I broke my leg in 6. I put a cornstalk through my arm. I split open my head. Never got to play competitive baseball again. But I dreamed for 16 years about playing baseball. And I still sometimes have dreams about playing baseball. I just know it's not physically possible anymore. When I share that story, I think back to my last fastball. I was a pitcher. And I think about that, dreams. And now I dream about being on stage in front of 100,000 people, like at a Tony Robbins event. Much like pitching, being in front of an audience speaking is a great rush for me. So I can connect that, right? I can connect that, I can share that. And you have to go first, right? But you ask people about their dreams, people like to share them. If you make it safe, if you make it comfortable. Now, another great way to connect is tell me about a time when. Tell me about a time when. Come up with a question. Include when you felt, when you experienced. Tell me about a time, the last time you were disappointed. The last time you were truly happy. The last time you changed jobs. The last time you got promoted. The last time you felt in love. Tell me about a time. And as a team, some of that will connect. Some people think it's too mushy-gushy. That's okay. This isn't for everybody, gang. Some of these questions aren't going to resonate with everybody on your team. Some people are going to talk about the Giants for an hour. Some people are going to talk about their dreams for an hour. And that's okay. So tell me about a time when. And then you as the leader, as the person who cares the most, whether you're the leader by title or you're the leader because you went first, call out the connections. Call out the connections. What connects to what? Oh, you said you're a Giants fan. Oh, we got another Giants fan over here. Oh, you said you like Italian food. Fantastic. We've got another person who loves Italian food over here. Oh, you want to be a baseball player? Great. We got somebody else who wanted to be a basketball player, and you can talk about that. Call out the connections. Call out the connections. Again, I talked about cities, right? Those are big connections for people. Whatever it is, call them out though. As the leader, make the connections visible. People don't always make them themselves. So call them out. Help people own them. And do this frequently and consistently. Frequently and consistently. Put this on the calendar and make it happen. Now, people always ask me, so how frequently, how consistently? Well, rather than me tell you, I like definitions, right? I like the thesaurus, right? The thesaurus. Frequently means often, many times, commonly, regularly, repeatedly. How often, you decide. But if it isn't those things, that's probably not frequently enough. It doesn't say now and then when you feel like it, only if you've got time. You need to make time for this. If this is important, if you want to connect to people, frequently is the time. And then consistently, pretty darn similar, right? Constantly, regularly, always, systematically and steadily. Now I'm going to get some pushback here on always, but I want to tell you, every time you're with people, take time to connect. You want to connect with people you've never met in person? You have to go first. You have to be vulnerable. You have to connect to what matters to you. That's culture, gang. That's what culture really is. You got to share a little bit of context. Why should they care? Who are they? You got to go first, and then you got to connect it. You can do that over and over and over again until you're connected to virtually anybody that you want to connect to. If that's your goal, this is how you do it. I like to close with this. If there's any way that I can help you, I encourage you to connect with me. Share something with me about you. This is how to do it. That's my email address. That's my phone number. That's our corporate website. You can find me on LinkedIn or pretty much any social channel that you're on. If you find me and you connect with me, don't just send me a connection request, but actually connect. Hey, Phil, I heard your program and this is what really connected with me. Or, dude, I heard your program and I think you're all washed up. None of it connected with me. Any of it is okay. If I can help you in any way, I'd love to. I love to connect. I love to share my stories, and I encourage you to share yours. It's how we grow. It's how life works. So with that, I hope you enjoy the rest of your meeting. I hope you get connected with each other, and I encourage you, like I said, to connect with me if there's any way that I can help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. So does anybody have any questions they wanted to ask Phil while we had him? Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I just wanted to say it's always a pleasure to hear you present and kind of to share a little something back that I sort of got from you is making time to develop others. Phil, you and I met in Nashville in 2006. And that is absolutely one of the things I learned from you is if you're going to invest time in someone, make it a quality relationship and, help them, see how you can help them. And sometimes you're surprised. You may learn something else from them that you didn't know before. So thank you very much for presenting today. It's awesome. Thank you.
My pleasure, David. My pleasure.
And Phil, I know your offer is genuine because, I mean, think about it. I mean, we contacted you this morning to see if you could pitch in and help out when our speaker came down with COVID. And look at you, you stepped in and were able to to help us out. I know that your offer is genuine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I put my LinkedIn URL as well for you. Again, take a shot of that. You want to talk to me later, any way that I can help you, I'm happy to. Even with no notice, I'm your guy. So let me know.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
So,
everyone.
so with that, we're going to move into our second speaker. Again, today is, let's just say, a little bit of a strange day. We're not going to follow like our normal convention, when it comes to, how we conduct our chapter meetings. The chapter business, our icebreaker is going to kind of wait to the end. And Lisa also kind of jumped in. We had planned on Lisa chatting with us at a future HDI meeting, and Don Varela, who is the service desk manager at Navy Federal Credit Union, a pretty large financial services entity, ended up with a family emergency and ended up having to take this whole week off and wasn't able to do it. And fortunately, I was able to reach out to Lisa, and she was able to step in as well. So I thank you. If there's anything that COVID has taught, certainly me, I think most people, is to be resilient and flexible in almost all your dealings. You just literally never know when things are going to get turned upside down, and you have to punt a little bit. So at least I do appreciate your flexibility in being able to chat with us today. So with that, I wanted to introduce Lisa to our July Philly HDI chapter meeting. I've known Lisa for at least 10 years, maybe even longer. And I even know a few years ago, you did present at a Philly HDI meeting and a few other HDI chapters as well. So she's been involved, in the HDI universe earlier in her career. But before embracing her innate talents and helping leaders with emotional intelligence, she founded a firm called Right Process, that was a solution that helped organizations master their processes that are needed to successfully deliver on the services to their organization. But since then, she founded a firm called Empowered by Emotions, which is a boutique consultancy and training organization that specializes in helping leaders use their emotional awareness to help them thrive within their companies. So with that, I will turn it over to Lisa. And can we make Lisa a presenter so she can share her screen?
I already made her a co-host. You should be good.
Oh, even better. So Lisa, it is yours.
Okay, sounds great. So before I share, I'll just say thanks so much for the introduction, Jason. I appreciate it. It's nice to be here. Great opportunity. It's also nice. I do see names from people who I have known from ages ago. David, thanks for so much for reaching out. And it's wonderful to see some faces. I think in some cases, it may be even closer to 20 years since I've seen some of you. So great to see you. My style is kind of fast paced. I call it the speed dating pace sometimes to go through topics. My goal is to leave you with value today about emotional intelligence. That said, I may come in on an angle that's a little bit different than some of what you've heard about relative to emotional intelligence in the past. So feel free to put comments in the chat. Feel free to, take yourself off mute if you're able to do that and interject if there are questions. The more interactive, the better from my perspective. So with that all said, we'll get started. And I am sharing my screen for optimized video, Jason, just as my reminder. So thank you very much. Okay. One sec. Okay, so emotional intelligence, what is it and why should leaders care? So what I'd like to do is I would like to just kind of jump right in to the why should you care? So thinking along the lines of emotional intelligence, it's pretty popular out there these days, but why as a leader should you care? And there are going to be several things that kind of start to come together on this particular screen from the outside coming in. So if you think along the lines of the items that you see on the screen now, these are a lot of common problems that leaders and organizations are facing today. Not that uncommon, right? A lot of us are struggling with many of them. A lot of us are struggling with some of them. But if you think along the lines of those, whether it's employee turnover or unresolved problems, the groupthink herd mentality. So these are probably not unfamiliar problems that ultimately organizations are struggling with. So let's kind of say, well, what leads to those problems? So we're going to go from the outside coming in. So what leads to lost productivity? What leads to suboptimal performance? Well, a lot of the circles that you see. Team members who are physically exhausted because they are, they've got more on their plate than they can handle. Resentments, impasses and stalemates, strained relationships, organizational silos. So on the outside, we've got these problems that are the ultimate things that we'd like to resolve. And then we're coming in to say, well, what's causing these? And here's where it kind of gets interesting. People operating without emotional intelligence is sort of like death by 1,000 cuts. You don't just go directly to lost productivity. You don't just go directly to organizational silos. It's like this death by 1,000 cuts that occurs based off of the interactions that coworkers are having with one another within their organization. So people operating without emotional intelligence, the circles that just came in last, you can think of those as the verbs. Those are the things that people are doing on a day-to-day basis. In some cases, people are talking more than they're listening. Other cases, they're fighting to win. They want to be right, or they become distracted. They take things for granted. They think subjectively and perhaps don't even realize they're doing some of these things. So going back to the title of the talk, what is emotional intelligence and why should you care? This is the why we should care, because this is the consequence of people operating without emotional intelligence. Now I'm going to come from the different angle and say, okay, so great, it's a little vomitaceous when you think of what it feels like or what it looks like to operate without emotional intelligence. Well, what does it look like when people are operating with emotional intelligence? And instead of it being a death by 1,000 cuts, it's really the accumulation of tiny tweaks to their behavior. The opposite of what we saw on the other page. So people being able to respectfully disagree, speaking with intention, not taking things so personally, listening more than they talk, not making assumptions. So these are the teeny tweaks that can occur when people operate with emotional intelligence and they show up a certain way in their day-to-day interactions with people, with their day-to-day interactions with their responsibilities. Doesn't mean that the stress goes away. Doesn't mean that we're still not operating up against important deadlines and significant responsibilities, but it changes the way you're showing up. And ultimately, again, we're going from the outside, or excuse me, from the inside okay, these cumulative tiny tweaks of behavior, and kind of going out to the next layer and saying, okay, so now there's clarity. You get some greater cross-functional collaboration, synergistic relationships, and then you can probably see where this is going. And then that's what leads to the solutions of some of these significant problems that we're faced with within the organizations. So I'm starting with the why should we care? Because I think when you see a picture that speaks 1,000 words, emotional intelligence is one of those things, and we'll talk a bit more about this of, well, okay, what is it? But it's one of those things that in many cases, the verdict is still out for some people because they're thinking, yeah, emotions in the workplace, they associate emotions with therapy, right? Or in some cases, I don't mean this to be offensive, you have a lot of people who have read a book or two, or a lot of people who are under the impression that they're already emotionally intelligent, when in fact they may have the knowledge, but not necessarily the skills. So I'm going to stop the share just to do a quick check-in. Jason, I've got you in the middle of my screen. Can you give me a thumbs up that everything's functioning properly, audio, we're all good with the slides, etc.? Great.
Perfect.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody have any questions about what we just went over? One of the things, if you're interested, again, picture speaks 1,000 words. If you're interested in a copy of having that side-by-side comparison of the two slides that I just put up there, that's available on the website. Jason, I think you have a link to the actual document if people want to, opt to get that. I think you've got that. If you want to put that in the chat, that would be great as well. So kind of kicking off with, okay, what is emotional intelligence, but why should we care? And that's the summary, picture speaks 1,000 words, of why we should care. So now let's go back to, well, what is emotional intelligence? And if you Google that, I don't know how many gobs of responses you'll get on Google, but it's, hundreds of thousands of responses. Here's the definition that I would recommend. Emotional intelligence is your ability to recognize, pay attention to, understand, and effectively engage with emotions in a manner that helps you achieve your preferred outcomes and the results that you want. Doesn't mean that when you're emotionally intelligent, life gets easy. Doesn't mean when you're emotionally intelligent, you just breeze through conflict. It absolutely does not mean that. It does mean that you're leveraging your emotions in your day-to-day interactions with people. So I'm going to stop the share and go back to Jason's introduction. And Jason had made reference to the software company that I had, and I also had a management consulting company. And without going into the background, here's the basic gist of what I learned. Process improvement efforts, love them, they're great. Technology automation projects, done a ton of the installs, done them. Love them, great. But there's always an undercurrent of people-related challenges that process improvement initiatives don't solve for and technology automation doesn't solve for. And that's where this sweet spot of emotional intelligence comes into play. So that's the real passion for me in helping clients with so many of these projects. That was great and there were results, but it was missing this opportunity that emotional intelligence is addressing. How do you address the human capital, the human resources, who are ultimately, if we go back to those original two slides, who are ultimately the heartbeat of the organization, and having either the death by 1,000 cuts or having the cumulative tiny tweaks in the way they show up. Any questions? Any comments? Anybody have anything that they want to explore a little further relative to that with emotional intelligence, without emotional intelligence, and that definition that we've established? Okay.
It's weird. Yeah, I can think of just several instances in my career, where one or the other made all the difference. Whether it was just my own personal career or, some of the employees that have worked for me in my career. I think mastery is not the right word. Embracing is probably the right word of these concepts. Can only help.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a harsh thing for me to say, but I had a conversation with my best friend's husband, and he sits in the C-suite of a Fortune 20 company, and he put it in these words. He said, "Lisa, now I get what you're doing." And he said, "Like it or not, I'm going to say it this way. Emotional intelligence is the new weapon to win. It's the untapped professional knowledge and skills that makes a huge difference. But because there are so many misconceptions and stigmas associated with emotions, we're relegating emotions to outside of the workplace. It's starting to shift a little bit, right? Because of the impact that emotionally intelligent people can have. So I agree 100%, Jason, relative to the benefit derived, it's significant. Okay, anybody else before I keep going? All right, back to sharing the screen. So again, emotional intelligence, it's your ability to recognize emotions, name it to tame it. A lot of people don't know the difference between envy and jealousy. A lot of people don't know the difference between guilt and shame. A lot of people don't know the difference between fear and anxiety. The ability to recognize specific emotions, pay attention to them, understand why they activate, and then the effectively engage. You've got three choices: react, respond, or engage. And do it in a manner that helps you achieve your preferred outcomes and results. So let's keep going. And let's say, all right, so that's all well and good. I'd like to get myself some emotional intelligence, and I'm ready. Well, one of the biggest things that gets in the way of leaders embracing emotional intelligence has to do with these mistaken beliefs that they have about emotions. They're misinformed. And as a result of being misinformed, they're missing out on a significant performance edge. So it's an opportunity that's not being seized by a lot of misinformed leaders because they've got mistaken beliefs that they've developed about emotions. So let's tackle three of those. I like to refer to this as busting some emotion myths. So the first mistaken belief is that the human experience shouldn't include negative emotions. Yeah, nope, The human experience is supposed to include a combination of all emotions. So let's kick off this video that's going to be a quick summary around this key concept of the human experience is what it is, and it consists of a combination of all emotions.
This key concept is about the human experience. Despite the fact the average American spends close to 20,000 hours in school, very little time, if any, is spent teaching students about their emotions. Even if you add another 5,000 to 6,000 hours for those that graduate with a 4-year college degree, rarely, if ever, is emotional intelligence taught. This is problematic because the human experience includes all emotions. If you see a grizzly bear, you'll probably feel fear. When your new baby is born, you might feel joy. When someone dies, you might feel grief. Or if you win an award, you could feel happy. the human experience includes a wide range of emotions. Some of the time, you'll experience difficult emotions like anger, grief, sadness, or shame. And other times, you'll experience the easier emotions, such as happiness, excitement, and joy. The key concept to understand is the human experience includes emotional balance. Over time, there's a relatively even distribution of emotions, because sometimes life is easy, and other times it can be very hard. That's life. Stuff happens.
Okay, so Jason, looking for a thumbs up. Audio is okay. We're good with that. Okay. So in the chat, little curious, anybody who's willing to share, have you attended emotional intelligence training? And I would expect I'm going to see a lot of yeses. Or we can do a quick around the room with, you might want to put a thumbs up or one of those little reactions above you. But how many of you have attended some emotional intelligence training?
Bunch of yeses coming into our chat.
Great. Now I'm going to change the question. How many of you right now could articulate the difference between fear and anxiety, jealousy and envy, and guilt versus shame? Simple yes or no. You could or you couldn't. Little meh. So here's the challenge. And for those of you who I know, it's the same as how I was 20 years ago. I am a firm believer the devil is in the details. The danger is if we're talking about if we're looking at emotional intelligence as something where we've developed knowledge, we consume some information, but it doesn't translate into skills. Go back to that original 2 slides that we looked at the start of the talk. We want the emotional intelligence knowledge to translate into actionable skills. We want the knowledge that you take away to then translate into showing up differently. And the reason why I asked the question about jealousy versus envy, shame versus guilt, fear versus anxiety, because as leaders, those differences are very important because they change the way you're interacting, whether it's you who's experiencing the emotion, remember, name it to tame it, or you who's guiding a coworker or a constituent who is experiencing that emotion. Questions, comments, anything anybody wants to chime in? Point being, we don't want to get a false sense of, yep, I'm emotionally intelligent, I get it, and then bypass this incredible performance advantage, this performance opportunity, performance edge. I won't say weapon to win again, right? But you get the significance of the difference between skills and just having knowledge. Okay, so we're good with the audio, so I'm going to keep going. So that's one of the mistaken beliefs. Now we've got a second mistaken belief. The second mistaken belief is people think there are negative emotions. So this slide is actually wrong. That shouldn't say there are no negative emotions. The mistaken belief is there are negative and positive emotions. No, that's not true. Just because an emotion is difficult or just because an emotion is unpleasant, it does not mean the emotion is negative. And, we could have a little discussion or a little, argument, whatever you want to call it. We could have a conversation around, well, that's just a matter of semantics. I would fight that one pretty hard. I don't think it's just a matter of semantics. And I think you'll see why in this video.
This key concept is about no negative emotions. Have you ever heard someone say, "Don't shoot the messenger"? A long time ago, long before there was Morse code, fax machines, email, and cell phones, information was delivered by a human messenger. For example, during war, messengers on horseback would ride from one camp to another to communicate important information. If the information was difficult and unsettling, the recipient might blame the messenger for the bad news. When negative emotions activate, instead of engaging and paying attention to the information the emotion is trying to bring into our awareness, we often want to shoot the messenger. This is because our Western civilization approaches emotions by categorizing them into negative emotions and positive emotions. Just because an emotion is difficult or uncomfortable doesn't mean it's negative. All emotions are healthy. Some emotions, such as anxiety, fear, and shame, can certainly be harder to navigate than happiness, excitement, and joy, but all emotions are healthy. Here's one more very important way to think about it. How people react is what gives emotions a bad rap. The emotion is not what's positive or negative. The way that people react to their emotions is what makes us think there are positive and negative emotions.
Not sure if it was really, maybe if I could have had the volume go up to like 100 on that last part of the slide, how significant, if that went, over if you were multitasking, but how significant that last part is. It's not the emotion that's negative or positive. When your anger activates, it activates for a reason. The way we react to it, heck yeah, that can be positive or negative. But the emotion in and of itself is not what's positive or negative. The emotion is a form of intelligence. So when we're all talking about wanting to achieve diversity within our teams, when we're talking about what Phil just got done talking about connection, right? When we're talking about these things, if we don't want people to get angry, wait a second, the tone of the meeting, we're getting a little too heated. I don't want people getting all pissed off and angry. Well, wait a minute. Anger is healthy, and anger is how you get access to different people's beliefs and different people's opinions. So you want anger in your meetings. You just don't want people reacting to anger in ways that's disrespectful, in ways that's destructive. So this is like major stigma, major myth, major mistaken belief that people have about emotions. Oh gosh, I don't want you to feel guilty. No. Yeah, you do. Guilt is a mechanism, guilt is a form of intelligence that guides our conduct. If there's a big deadline and it's on Friday and I miss it, you better believe you want guilt to activate in me. You don't want me to curl up in a ball or, cuddle in the corner in the fetal position, just devastated. Again, that's the reaction to guilt. So we'll take a look at another video that basically is saying what I just got done saying, which is emotions, they're a form of intelligence. Your liver, your spleen, your heart, it's a part of who we are. It's designed for a reason. They serve a purpose. Your skin serves a purpose. Your lungs serve a purpose. Your brain serves a purpose. Come on, everybody. Really? Do we really think that we would have emotions that don't serve a purpose, we're just not informed about their purpose. And the reactions that people have to their emotions, that's what gives them a bad rap. Questions, comments, thoughts before we go to the next one?
Women who run for public office, especially higher public office, sometimes will get the rap of, women are so emotional, that they aren't going to make good decisions because they're emotional, and they mean that as a negative, people that say that as a negative, and, I think what you're getting at, and I think what hopefully our country will one of these days embrace is, that your emotional intelligence, your understanding of emotions and being able to connect with emotions is actually a strength. It's not a negative, but in a male-oriented society, that's sometimes how they put women down, is
Sure.
that, well, they're going to be emotional.
Sure. And here's the part. We're going to do one more video and then we're going to finish with a final video. But here's the part. If you don't understand what I'm saying about reactions are absolutely negative or positive. So Jason, I'm piggybacking on what you said. If I have a person running for office who stands on the platform sobbing about the sadness and despair, not sure that reaction is appropriate. But if that person understands the difference between sadness and grief and understands why sadness activates, that individual can absolutely engage with that emotion by taking actions that are very deliberate. The simple difference between sadness and grief? They're both about release. With sadness, you have a choice. With grief, you have no choice. So can a person in a leadership position, understanding emotions, be a far more effective leader or politician, whatever role, parent, spouse, whatever role you play? But that distinction of positive or negative, all emotions are healthy and serve a purpose. How you react to them, how you respond to them, that's where the wheels can fall off the bus. But that distinction is critical to emotional intelligence. Anybody? Okay. Next one. Okay. Here's the third mistaken belief, the myth that we're going to bust. The third myth to bust today. Negative emotions are just pesky distractions and you should avoid them. Yeah, nope. Emotions are a form of intelligence. If you're willing to listen and work with your emotions rather than working against them, you'll find out they're trusted advisors. They're signals. They activate to inform you of valuable information.
This key concept is about how your emotions can serve as a trusted advisor and a source of intelligence. If you've ever watched a round of golf and had the opportunity to observe the dynamics between a golf pro and his or her caddy, you'll know it's a collaborative effort. The caddy doesn't simply carry the clubs. He or she helps calculate the distances, evaluates the weather conditions, recommends certain clubs, and supports the pro in taking the best possible shot. The caddy is a trusted advisor who can influence the outcome of the game. Like a golf caddy, every emotion stands to play the role of a trusted advisor, because they are designed to bring meaningful information into your awareness. In other words, each emotion serves a specific purpose. It's like the way our anatomy is made up of bones, tendons, muscles, and organs, whereby each part serves a distinct purpose. The same holds true for each of our emotions. Once you learn to trust your emotions and discover the purpose each emotion plays, you can tap into this source of intelligence. Working with your emotions instead of working against them helps you navigate the circumstances and relationships in your life with greater ease and effectiveness.
Okay, so the last whatever few words in that animation helps you navigate life with greater ease and effectiveness. That does not at all mean helps you navigate life like unicorns, roses, and rainbows. That does not mean helps you navigate life so you can always be happy. Remember the first myth that we busted? The human experience is a combination of both pleasant and unpleasant. And if you're constantly trying to be happy, or you're leading your team in a way that rah-rah wants everybody to be happy when we're working 18 and 19-hour days leading up to a deadline, shame on you, right? Happiness is not the goal. So it doesn't mean navigating life with greater ease and effectiveness does not necessarily translate into a party. Another way to think about it is you eliminate unnecessary drama. You eliminate unnecessary suffering. So when we go through layoffs, you better believe there's going to be drama. When we go through layoffs, you better believe there's going to be suffering. But can you navigate as an informed leader with emotional intelligence? Can you navigate those conflicts and those difficult situations with greater ease and effectiveness, whereby you don't infuse unnecessary drama, or you don't infuse unnecessary suffering? It's work, it's life. We're going to have drama, we're going to have suffering. The key is to eliminate the unnecessary fuel to the fire. Thoughts? If you guys don't have any thoughts, I'm going to be done in like 12 minutes. So Jason, I'm just letting you know. So everybody good?
We're not usually so shy. And it's funny, usually, sometimes people will just type into our chat, and I've been keeping an eye on chat, and I haven't even seen much on chat.
Okay.
Maybe it's the summer doldrums, maybe it's the heat wave, but
I'm gonna hope. Okay, I'm gonna hope. So let's ask this question, and thank you, Christy, for the love it. Be honest, because it doesn't help any of us, right? In the chat, are you less interactive because the content has your attention? Or are you less interactive because you're a little, do I dare say bored? Can we be? Does the content have your attention? Or are you hot and ready to get off the call? How about in the chat? Content has my attention and is provoking thought and introspection. Love it. I don't want to interrupt the flow of the content. I'm actually appreciative of that, although I shouldn't outright say that. Okay, that was from Tim. Christy, not bored, just searching my brain for the difference between jealousy and envy. Oh, I'm going to give that one. I read Brene Brown's book, but I forget. Love it. I'll respond to that. Thank you very much, Miss Christy. Sam, I'm trying to absorb these concepts and I'm not ready to ask questions. Super, as long as I'm not boring you guys. Interesting and presented well. No questions, but praise for getting the details on how we react to our own emotions and others. Excellent. All right, so jealousy and envy. Ready? Envy is about resources. Jealousy is about intimate relationships. Here's jealousy. Jealousy is the emotion that activates to inform you when an important relationship is at risk. There's a new employee, a new coworker. You have a new peer at work, and you see that peer going to lunch routinely with the boss that the two of you share. And you're not invited. So here's the boss, and then it's you, and you have a new peer who's been brought on, and you see your boss and the peer frequently having lunch. Jealousy is the emotion that might activate to inform you that that important relationship with you that you have with your boss may be at risk. Now you're going to see that a lot of your thoughts are what cause emotions to activate. That's what's coming next. So there might be something wrong with your thinking. Here's a little, it's not work related, but here's another example. I'm at a party. I'm with my significant other. And I look across the room and I see this significant other really quite animated and quite enthused about the conversation he's having with another woman. I've actually never seen him giggling so much. He's got a smile ear to ear, and he's touched her shoulder a couple of times. My jealousy may activate to inform me that that relationship may be at risk. So when I ask and engage my husband on the ride home and say, hey, honey of mine, I saw you talking to that woman and kind of seemed like there was a little chemistry. He just keeps driving straight ahead, and he doesn't look over at me. And he says, I always blow things out of proportion, and that's ridiculous. Guess what? Thank you, jealousy. Because maybe there is something that's putting my relationship at risk. Alternatively, if he says, Lisa, that's Mary. Remember the person I told you we grew up next to each other and her parents died early and we like adopted their family? That's Mary. And then my jealousy can go, ooh, and deactivate. Because now I have more information. I'm more informed. Jealousy, it's in the fear category, and it activates when there is a risk or a perceived risk to an important relationship that could threaten your well-being. Going back to the work thing, if I see the new coworker getting chummy with our boss, it could threaten the promotion that I'm aspiring for. Envy is around resources. You know, drives me crazy because the Smiths, they're always driving brand new cars. And you know, here, like, I think we should have brand new cars. Or, you know, they just gave accolades to Henry for this project. And, you know, that's great for Henry, but I work just as hard as Henry. I think I should be getting kudos and credit and an award like Henry's being given. So envy is resource specific. Oh my gosh, have you seen Tammy? She always gets what she wants. It's like life is like going through butter for her. She gets, everything goes her way. That's envy. questions. So these are the speed dating answers, right? There's a whole lot more that goes in to the behind the scenes and the details around this information. It's the speed dating answers. And hopefully what it's doing is inspiring you to say, yeah, gee, understanding if I'm jealous as opposed to envious, that could actually help me craft a better response. Helping me to identify if I'm anxious versus fearful. Fear and anxiety, want to know the simple difference between the two of them? One is real time right now. That's fear. It's the emotion that activates when there is a risk or a perceived risk to your physical or emotional safety. You smell smoke right now. You smell smoke. That's fear. Right? It's activating because it senses something new that could potentially put your emotional or physical safety at risk. Real time fear. Anxiety is the emotion that activates when there's a threat to your emotional or physical safety or a perceived threat that's in the future. So, let's be honest. Jason reached out when he did and said, would you be willing to do this presentation? I just had a pretty serious accident and I've been on some pretty serious meds. And I was thinking to myself, sure, heck yeah, I want to do it. But I was anxious on Monday and Tuesday, future-based, because I was concerned about how long I could sit upright without being in pain and disclosing that to the participants. That's anxiety, future-based. You have to, you have a report that's due on Friday. Oh, and that stinking thing's not done yet. And you're dependent upon Kendra and Josiah, and they haven't gotten, that's anxiety. And think about it as an informed leader. If you know the difference between these, it helps you engage and navigate your emotions, but think of how much better you would be as an informed leader helping other people navigate their emotions. Somebody does not, guilt and shame. Guilt, the behavior is bad. Shame, you are bad. So you've got to sit down and you've got to give some really tough feedback to somebody on the team who's not delivering. Sarah, you really screwed up in that meeting. And I want to be crystal clear. It is not okay that you take 1.5-hour lunch breaks for a meeting when you are the facilitator. Not okay. Very specific to the behavior. Here's what shaming sounds like. Sarah, what the hell were you thinking? Do you know how much money was spent flying everybody in for this one-day meeting? Why would you think it's okay to take an 1.5-hour lunch? What were you thinking? Yeah, no. So knowing the difference, guilt, behavior-based, shame. Guilt, I did something bad. Shame, I am bad. Shame is still a really good emotion, and it'll activate when you feel bad about yourself. And that's when it's very important to get to work on addressing what's causing you to feel like you're not enough. Okay, so great, Jason. So connecting the dots in real and meaningful ways, good real world examples. Anybody else? Okay, let's get to our next dippity-doo. We did this one, right? Yes. Okay. So
This
high achieving leaders can perform well, avoid burnout, and arrive home with a little fuel left in the tank. It's possible. Yes, we can perform well. Yes, we can avoid burnout. Yes, we can actually arrive home with some fuel left in the tank in this really difficult economy that we're navigating. But it's going to require, or if you want to say it another way, it's an opportunity for using a new novel approach with some courage to bust some long-standing myths. We just busted 3 of them, and the self-discipline to explore new therapy. New territory. You absolutely can become educated about emotions without being in therapy. Therapy is a fabulous thing and has its place, but a lot of people think that it's the only place to learn about emotions. So emotional intelligence is this new key to unlocking significant performance, advantage, edge, however you want to word that. Okay. So also keep in mind, if you need extra proof, emotional intelligence is getting more and more attention, now more than ever before. And we said, but what is it? These folks, Peter Salovey and John Mayer, they're from the Yale University. They're basically the founding fathers around emotional intelligence. They're researcher guys. And then you've got Daniel Goleman, who started as a journalist. He's the one who did the emotional intelligence book and really popularized in the 90s emotional intelligence. Love both methodologies or both philosophical approaches. They are different. They have some similarities, but they have different ways of defining emotional intelligence. I gave you the definition that I like to work with, the ability to recognize, oh, wait a minute, is that guilt or is that shame? Oh, wait a minute, is that, no, it's, okay, fear and anxiety, yep, that's anxiety, future-based. Understand, why does that emotion activate? What is it designed to do for me? And then effectively engage instead of just reacting, or the alternative, repressing. Yeah, no, I'm okay. Yeah, no, nothing's bothering me. So instead of reacting or repressing, effectively engage in a manner that helps you to achieve your preferred outcomes. If we're in a huge executive meeting and one of my staff members puts a report out that's got errors in it, and achieve your desired outcomes and results, I may make the conscious decision not to address the issue right then and there, even though my anger is absolutely active. If the preferred outcome for that meeting is to complete the meeting and then come up with a strategy for how to go back and address the inaccuracies. So it's the preferred outcomes is a big part of it. But truth bomb, it doesn't mean when you engage with your emotions, you always get what you want. You steer towards preferred outcomes. It's like a North Star. You engage in a way with the emotion that helps to support your preferred outcomes and results. Okay, Jason, how many more minutes do I have?
Why don't you get it like another 5 or so?
Okay. Yep,
Yeah.
great. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we said this is the quote, or this is, excuse me, the definition. And we established at a very micro level, right? So I tried to kick off at a micro level of what does it look like with people operating without emotional intelligence, and what does it look like with people operating with emotional intelligence? So before we wrap up, I want to raise it up to the macro level. Did I say macro or micro? What we've done so far has been some micro stuff. And now I want to finish up with some macro with this final video.
This key concept is about the 5-step sequential process. In mathematics, a variable is a symbol which works as a placeholder for an expression or quantities that may vary or change. The letter X is an example of a variable in a basic algebraic equation. The 5-step sequential process consists of 5 variables. They include a circumstance, thought, emotion, action, and result. In some ways, the 5-step sequential process is like an equation, because the 4 variables to the left of the equal sign are what translate into the result, which is to the right. But because the variables have a logical order, whereby one variable has a direct influence on the next, it's better described as a process. Anyway, here's a little more on how it works. For the human mind to make sense of a circumstance, it has to think a thought. In response to the thought, an emotion will activate. Based on the active emotion, you take action. And finally, your actions are what translate into the result you achieve. That's how the 5-step sequential process works. But enough about how it works. Consider its value. The 5-step sequential process can be as powerful as night goggles when you're lost in the dark on a midnight mission. If you're wondering why you're experiencing a certain emotion, exploring your thoughts will shed some light on the situation. If you're wondering why you're acting a certain way, exploring your emotions will also shed some light. And I bet you know what's coming next. If you're wondering why you're achieving a certain result, all you have to do is explore your actions. Applying the 5-step sequential process to real-life scenarios is a key skill to developing master-level emotional intelligence.
It's so funny because in designing these animations, I find myself saying, oh, that's my favorite one. And then I find myself saying, oh, that's my favorite one after almost all of them, because they're, you know, these little key concepts that are supposed to be chunkified. But that one, that one is definitely one of my favorites out of the 50 that are part of the program. So let me go. Sorry?
I think I know why.
God,
Because you're all about process.
that's right. That's right. Absolutely.
Process in there somewhere.
There's a process in all of this stuff. I'm a very logical thinker, and it has to be pragmatic. And yes, you can see the process engineering and the management consulting throughout this program. No question. Okay, so I think if let's see. Okay, so kind of again on that macro level. So when you think about emotional intelligence, another way that you can come at this topic of master level it really is a combination of understanding thought management, you know, why does the brain operate the way it does? Understanding aspects of emotional literacy, and then taking intentional action, again, to support your desired outcomes and results. So that's another way of defining what is emotional intelligence. It's the combination of those three based on the understanding of how your thoughts, your emotions, and your decisions are coming into play. Okay, the end. So I'll stop sharing. Had to hit the button. So that's what I had for today. Again, it's been kind of like a speed dating rapid fire. And I think, does anybody have any questions? Again, I guess I should say, so on LinkedIn, I have my own Lisa Welsher, or I have the Empowered by Emotions. I have on TikTok, heaven help me, but I've been guided that that's a good platform to be on, and it's driving me crazy because it's so not my thing, but I am working on TikTok with Empowered by Emotions, also on Instagram as Empowered by Emotions. And my email is lisawelsher@Empowered by Emotions. So Jason, that's what I've got.
Awesome. Real quick, I know that everybody can go to your website and there's a lot of good content in there, and I know that you have, your program itself.
Yeah.
Can you give us just kind of a quick synopsis of what the program is?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not for the lighthearted. So I'll put it that way. It's a 12-week program. It's offered in one of three ways, either publicly, so people can participate in a public offering. It's offered in September and March, twice a year. They have the option of doing the program exclusively, one-on-one, anytime. Or the third option is to do it internally. So if you have a private group that you want to do it with, Jason, I had even thought it would be fun if we had HDI participants, we could coordinate our own group. We could do something like that. But it's a 12-week program. It is a combination of a hybrid between online self-study, one-on-one interactions between myself and the participant, as well as with the public program, a 60-minute weekly group call that I have to say is fabulous because it's just really very, very enlightening to hear professional leaders sharing how they're trying different techniques, and it's that 60-minute group call is a favorite. So that's it. Thanks for asking, Jason.
Awesome. I could see the public one, while you might be anxious about sharing some of this stuff with people that you don't know. But on the other hand, if you did it with your company, for instance, you may not be as forthcoming because these are people that you work with, and
absolutely.
So I'm glad that you have a couple different ways to do it.
Yep. I just had a fire chief go through the program in a one-on-one exclusive arrangement, and it was so neat to hear the way he was applying it in his fire. I call it a station, but it was way more than just one station. But it's anybody who's in a leadership position, and I've also had parents who have gone through it, not just business leaders, but my market focus is predominantly with the marketing on leaders. So I would just like to say thank you all for the opportunity. I could talk about this topic 24/7. I hope it's inspired you a bit. I hope there was some actionable takeaway, that the investment of the time that you spent 50 minutes or so learning about what I had to share of emotional intelligence. I hope you're walking away with some information, and I would welcome the opportunity to connect. So that's what I've got.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate your time and flexibility. This was great.
Thank you. Have a great day.
It's all yours. Awesome. Thanks, Lisa.
Okay. Bye.
Okay, hopefully everyone can see my screen. Can I get a thumbs up? Okay, so just a few updates and then we're going to go into an icebreaker. So our Trenton Thunder game is typically in August. And as you all know from the events of the last couple of years, we haven't been able to do that, but we are happy to say that we're going to be able to do that, start again with that this year. So our date currently is Thursday, August the 18th at 7 o'clock. We are going to have limited space. So those of you that are on this call are kind of getting the information first. And we will kind of keep that in mind as far as first come, first serve. But hopefully we'll be getting information out soon, save the date and registration details. So HDI, corporate HDI has been able to start their events back in person. They've had 2 conferences so far in person. So they are resuming with their typical schedule of Support World Live is the conference that they had in May, and Service Management World is the conference that will be in November. So that those dates are November 12th to the 16th, and that will be in Orlando, Florida. So you can go out to the Think HDI website to get information on registration. We also have a code that we can offer. If you're part of the Philly chapter, you can use the code LCPHL, and that will give you additional discounts on the registration. And if you are interested in going, they do have some kind of early bird specials and that sort of thing. So you might want to check the website and see what the dates look like, if it makes sense to register sooner rather than later, depending on when the, early bird prices may change. As it gets closer to, the price does go up. So next up, we are going to have an icebreaker. So one thing that we have found that everyone seems to like is getting into the breakout sessions, and that gives you time to, chit chat and network and that sort of thing. So we have 2 questions on deck for today. One is a little more fun, hopefully, and then one is, kind of the business end. So the 2 questions that we would like you to talk about once you do introductions and that sort of thing are, what was your worst job? I'm sure that will conjure up some good, hopefully good, fun memories. And the second question, provided you have time, is think about a positive impact that COVID has had on your business, either your team, maybe finding ways to work remotely, that kind of thing. Think about a positive impact that has come up for your team during COVID. Any questions on those questions? Okay, then bear with me just a second and I will get our breakout room set up. Okay, and I have about 7 minutes on the clock. If you run out of things to talk about, you can certainly come back to the main room, but otherwise take about 7 minutes. You will get a warning. I know sometimes you're kind of mid-thought and the room pulls you back out. So you will get about a 60-second warning that the room is about to close. Okay, so just quickly, in case you forgot, what was your worst job and a positive impact that COVID has had professionally? Okay, enjoy. Okay, I think we have everyone back. What were some of the highlights from your groups?
Don't ever do retail.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I did 11 years of retail.
Same. No fun.
Yeah.
You know, but one common theme, and but Eddie was driving us home, and all our customers, just the ability to show that the job can be done remotely. The amount of certain clients that I'd worked with that wouldn't even accommodate 1 day a week remote. Now their entire service desk is remote, to many other teams, to hybrid schedules. So it's obviously there's one big plus that came from COVID.
We're actually bringing on a contractor next week who lives in Memphis. So, I mean, we never even would have looked at someone like that. But now that we're mostly home, why not?
Well, I was going to take your question and sort of amend it a little bit. How has COVID affected me unprofessionally? In that, actually it happened this week. My wife and I, she was working from her office down near DC. So I went along with her and was working remotely as well. And then after work, we went into Washington, DC and poked around a little bit. So we were sitting in a pub that we found, getting a quick dinner before we got back on the train to get out of town. And I looked around and all the gentlemen there were wearing suit coats and were pretty professionally dressed. And I'm wearing, comfortable shorts and a t-shirt. And I look around and these guys thinking, yeah, I'm dressed for work too. So it probably hasn't been the most professional change, but it has been. I said in the breakout room, I haven't seen my leather work shoes in 2 years. I'm not sure where they are because I've been working from remotely the whole time now. So an unprofessional change. Not complaining, but I probably should keep a Zoom shirt nearby for meetings like this. So.
First Pro was always pre-COVID. You had to wear a tie. In fact, Bayada was very tie, if I remember correctly. Right, Colleen? Have you guys changed that? I know we have, but what about Bayada?
Yes. So if anyone has ever had the opportunity or, pleasure to meet Mark Bayada, he is absolutely always in a suit. Like I've seen him at a few casual events, but no matter what, he is always in a suit, shirt, tie, jacket, the whole 9 yards. And that was for the longest time, even in IT, all the men had to wear shirts and ties. But the company was kind of handed over to Mark's son, David, a few years ago. And David is now our CEO. And he's definitely the professional attire, but he's more the modern professional attire. So you'll often see him with a shirt and jacket with no tie. So that has kind of been relaxed. And the other thing that's changed a little bit, I think I'm the only female left on the call, is the shoes are different. Like the men's shoes now almost look like sneakers, but they're nice shoes and they're comfortable and that sort of thing. And that's kind of what David, that's what he wears. And I see a tendency of a lot of the men wearing that. Obviously we're at home, so I don't know what kind of shoes people are wearing, but when we do go into the office, they are, that it's like, so it's still that somewhat business attire, but just no tie.
Yeah, for the first 20 years out of college, including working retail, I was required to wear a tie. So I'm not lamenting the loss of wearing a tie at this point. Not at all. I wore it 20 years. I'm good.
I never had to do that. So I worked for 2 different banks. I worked for Capital One for a long time. I was a senior manager there, and our CEO wore jeans and like a regular shirt.
It's funny because we went, even pre-COVID, we had gone away from, as senior managers, of having to wear suits and ties. I mean, like I came from the era of, I had 8 suits and cycled through them. But a lot of us as senior managers pre-COVID, we went back to wearing ties, no jackets, but shirts and ties. Because we just felt it for whatever reason. It wasn't that we were being disrespected or anything. We just felt it was just more appropriate. And it was still relatively casual. But you mentioned having the shirt, the Zoom shirt. It's the old days of we used to keep the jacket, the sport jacket and tie on the back of the office door.
Yes.
It's just a modern version of that.
Yeah, my Zoom shirt is actually literally, I used to keep one right here. I wore it to dinner a couple weeks ago and I haven't put it back yet.
I've got 3 of them hanging up over here. Well, but none of us will stand up during the video conference, right?
Well, yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
Hey, I came in late. I came in 30 minutes ago, but Colleen, did we announce that our next the September chapter meeting is going to be in person?
I did. Actually, the only slide I had left that I can share real quick is the schedule.
Yeah, because I'm excited about that. It's good to get everyone back together again. And
So hopefully everyone can see my screens are a little messed up, but hopefully you can see my schedule. So I mentioned Trenton Thunder, so limited space. So if you, hopefully you can all go, but if you're interested in going, as soon as you see that invite come out, get on that.
And adding to that, Colleen, we're looking at just 25 tickets, right? So
I think we can go as high as 30, but yes,
Okay.
it's probably only 25.
So it'll be on definitely a first come, first served basis. So that's always a good time.
And I believe we're going to offer preferential treatment to those that were here today. So hopefully you can get in. We'll get that out soon. And then, you know, kind of hot off the presses, one of the things that we were really hoping to do was get back in person for a few reasons, the obvious reasons of, you know, just the fatigue of Zoom and Teams and whatever. And John Kitchen was able to secure one of his campuses. So that is the Widener University Delaware campus, which we've had a few more meetings.
Colleen, has there been thought put into how often Zoom versus in-person meetings longer term?
Not yet, because we're going to try and gauge how many people we do get to come in person. That's one of the things that we're, you know, talking to some of the other chapters. Some are having success in getting people in person, and some are still struggling with that. So we're hoping that this, between Trenton Thunder and this September event, that it kind of helps us get our feet wet a little bit and figure out where we are. And then we'll kind of go from there. One thing, Jason had to hop off, but he's been doing a phenomenal job with our speakers, and he's found a lot of speakers that are not local to us. So I can see him still leveraging some of that. So in that case, it might make sense. If the speakers aren't going to be, you know, have to be on Zoom anyway, then maybe every other meeting or something like that, but we're not quite there yet.
Yeah, I'm involved with about 3 other groups that are struggling with the same thing. And
Sam, how many of them are doing in person, but while in person, allowing it to be Zoom?
Hybrid. We're doing one of them. We're doing hybrid now, and we'll see how it worked. We just started last month.
I'd be curious to know what that does
a
to
lot
the
of them
in-person attendance.
There's groups that meet every week, and they're looking at, you know, 3 meetings a month remote and one in person. There, some of the professional groups that I'm involved in are doing. It's actually been a boon because they've been sharing programming, and as a result, just the burden of programming to each chapter has been less. And then they've been making the chapter meetings more about local networking and socialization. So, you know, but I don't know what works and what doesn't. The issue is, you know, how, you know, I mean, HDI is a little different, but some of the groups are, there's a lot of competition, and how many can you have?
And we are looking to be able to host the September meeting hybrid as well. So those that don't feel comfortable being in person can still participate.
That's good.
That's a problem in the workplace. Look, you know, I mentioned some of the folks some of you know me. I used to work and manage teams remotely for 20 years. And it was often a problem with meetings where, you know, you have to learn how to manage the meetings and make sure that the people in one, either remote or on site, are not getting preferential treatment.
I saw an article yesterday on the New York Times that said that summer interns are showing up in offices that are completely empty. And the interns are basically just sitting around in conference rooms unsupervised. Not every one of them, but in a number of cases where the interns are showing up and everyone's working remotely. So they're just, you know, working in a conference room with their other interns while everybody else is at home.
I would say that's a problematic management situation.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Did I put that politely enough?
Politically correct.
We're still recording, so watch it. So just a couple more events to go through. We will have our golf outing. We have been able to keep that in person. So hopefully we'll be able to still have that. We just need to come up with a date, which we'll probably be doing relatively soon. And then again, in person, hopefully, if all goes well between now and then, we will have our annual leadership conference, the full day event, back to the way it was before. A little bit of a change in the date, but I don't know that anyone necessarily knew the date. We typically try to do it the first Friday of December, but we had a conflict with the location. So we're going to shoot for December the 9th. So thank you for those that stuck with us to the end. that's it. So I can let you have a little bit of time back, but I appreciate you sticking with it. I know it's a little bit of a long meeting, especially via Zoom, but we appreciate everyone's attendance, especially those that could stay till the end. So keep an eye out for those in-person events. We'll try and get those, save the dates and registration out a little bit sooner, just to give people time to plan for the in-person events. All right,
Thanks,
thank
Colin.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
See
good
ya.
rest of your day.
Good day.